The story of Rebekah, the dancer of grace. In a small, quiet village nestled between rolling hills, lived a young teenage girl named Rebekah. At just 13 years old, Rebekah was not like the other children in the village. While they found joy in games and stories, Rebekah found her greatest joy in dance. Whenever she heard the faintest melody, her feet would move, her arms would lift, and her spirit would soar. It was as if the music became a part of her, and she couldn't help but dance. But in Rebekah's village, dancing was frowned upon. The elders whispered that it was improper, even sinful, to express oneself in such a way. They taught that dance was a frivolous activity that led people away from the path of righteousness. Rebekah's parents, God-fearing as they were, grew concerned. They loved their daughter dearly but feared for her soul. One evening, as Rebekah twirled and leaped in the privacy of her room, her mother entered, her face a mask of worry. "Rebekah, my child," she began softly, "why do you continue to dance when you know it is against what our village believes?" Rebekah paused, her breath stilling in her chest. She loved her mother and respected the elders, but the call to dance was something she could not ignore. "Mother," Rebekah replied, her voice trembling, "when I dance, I feel close to God. It is as though He is with me, moving through me, and I cannot help but express the joy He places in my heart." Her mother sighed deeply, conflicted. "But Rebekah, the elders say that dancing is a path to evil. How can you be sure that what you feel is right?" Rebekah's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of the deep conviction in her heart. "Mother, the Scriptures tell us that Miriam, the sister of Moses, danced when God delivered the Israelites from the Egyptians. Exodus 15:20 says, "Then Miriam the prophet, Aaron's sister, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women followed her with timbrels and dancing. And David, the man after God's own heart, danced before the Lord with all his might when the Ark of the Covenant was brought to Jerusalem." 2 Samuel 6:14 says, "Wearing a linen ephod, David was dancing before the Lord with all his might." They danced to honor God, to celebrate His goodness and mercy. Her mother's heart softened at the mention of these beloved stories. She had read the Scriptures and knew the truth of her daughter's words. Miriam had indeed danced with joy, and David had danced without shame. They had not been condemned but celebrated for their faith and devotion. But the village was stern in its beliefs, and Rebekah's mother knew the elders would not be easily swayed. Still, she could not deny the light in her daughter's eyes or the truth in her words. Days passed, and the village's annual festival approached, a time of prayer, fasting, and worship. This year, the village elders announced that there would be no singing, no music, and certainly no dancing. The people were to focus solely on their spiritual lives, free from what the elders called worldly distractions. Rebekah's heart ached at the thought of such a somber festival, but she obeyed, spending the days in prayer. Yet on the night of the festival, as the villagers gathered in the temple, a strange thing happened. A powerful wind blew through the village, shaking the trees and causing the temple doors to swing open. The villagers gasped and whispered in fear, but Rebekah felt something different, a gentle nudge in her spirit. Without thinking, she stood, and the song of her heart began to rise. Though there was no music, she felt a rhythm deep within her soul, and before she knew it, her feet began to move. She danced. It wasn't a dance of rebellion, but of pure worship and joy. As Rebekah danced, the villagers watched in stunned silence. Then in the midst of her dance, a bright light filled the temple, and an angel of the Lord appeared. The villagers fell to their knees in awe and fear, but Rebekah continued to dance, her spirit attuned to the divine presence. The angel spoke, his voice like a melody that resonated in their hearts. "Do not fear, for the Lord is with you. He delights in your worship and your joy. As it is written in Zechariah 8:19, the fasts will become joyful and glad occasions and happy festivals for Judah." What is a feast without wine, music, and dance? God has given you these gifts to celebrate His goodness. The angel then turned to the village elder, who trembled before the heavenly being. "You have been zealous for the Lord, but do not quench the spirit of joy He has placed in His people. Remember the words of Ecclesiastes 3:4. A time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. Let this be a time to dance before the Lord." With that, the angel disappeared, leaving the villagers in a state of awe and reverence. The elder, tears streaming down his face, stood and addressed the people. "Rebekah," he said, his voice choked with emotion, Your dance was not of the flesh, but of the Spirit. God is with you, as he was with Miriam and David. The angel of the Lord has shown us the truth. True worship comes from the heart, and God delights in our joy. The villagers one by one nodded in agreement, and that night the festival became a celebration of God's mercy and grace. There was singing and, yes, even dancing, as the people rejoiced in the freedom that Rebekah had shown them. From that day forward, Rebekah's gift was no longer seen as something to be hidden, but as a blessing from God. She continued to dance, and whenever she did, the people were reminded of the joy and mercy of the Lord, who delights in the praises of his children. Psalms 149, 3. Let them praise his name in the dance. Let them sing praises unto him with the timbrel and harp. Please like and subscribe for more biblical theme stories.